if there will be compensation given by the seller, and it has to go into the contract. What does that mean? What does it mean for sellers?
What I think is going to dictate how this goes is really the area that you are looking to buy in or sell in.
And that is probably the biggest difference now between what was and what is.
So, the real estate industry is changed forever. It has happened. The National Association of Realtors settlement has gone through. So, I'm here with Suzy South. She is a veteran real estate agent and coach. Hey, Suzy.
Hey!
We're going to watch this really quick clip, and then Susan and I are going to break this down for you no matter who you are, buyer, seller, agent. We're going to tell you what this means for you.
Big changes if you're going to buy or sell a home, and they start in 1 week, and they all stem from a multi-million-dollar settlement that happened with the National Association of Realtors.
We know real estate is a big topic here in Arizona, so let's bring in 12 News journalist Jen Wall live in studio this morning to share how these changes will affect home sellers in Arizona. It is Money Saving Monday.
Yeah, good morning to you. The change is officially going into effect this Saturday, August 17th. The way you buy or sell a home is going to look a lot different following the real estate reform, not only here in Arizona, but across the country. So under the new real estate compensation changes, there has to be a signed agreement stating how much the buyer's agent will get paid. And this has to happen before buyers even start looking at the homes. There are different ways to do this, and longtime Arizona real estate agent Katie Evans says it's all open to negotiation. Evans tells me before listing a home, sellers need to consider whether they'll contribute anything toward buyer concessions. This is important because they'll want to attract as many buyers as possible. And Evans recommends first considering what temperature the market is at the moment. She says it's tougher to sell a home right now than it was 2 years ago. So you're going to want to decide whether you'll pre-negotiate broker-to-broker compensation themselves or if the seller will pay. So Evans says this information cannot be listed on the MLS anymore. She said it's been completely taken off here in Arizona, but she adds agents can advertise it on their private websites. So a little different there. Evans expects to see this happening more now with the changes, and she also expects to see the buyer's agent, when writing the offer, will negotiate compensation within the offer.
And that is probably the biggest difference now between what was and what is prior to this, we were never allowed to negotiate compensation for the agents in the contract. Now, that's exactly where it's going to be negotiated, is in the contract.
Okay, so it's all about negotiation here. This goes for the buyer and the seller. Her top tips for sellers are to have this compensation discussion with your real estate agent up front. Let them advise you on how it'll work best in the housing market that you're currently in. The goal here, again, to attract as many buyers as possible. So maybe be open to that negotiation with a good marketing plan. For now, live in the studio, Jen Wall, 12 News, Today and Easy.
All right, Suzy. What do we need to know? Let's start off. I mean, they spoke a lot about sellers.
They did.
So basically, now it used to be, and just for everyone out there, if you don't know what an MLS is, it's the multiple listing service. It's where all residential real estate is usually listed. So real estate agents will put their listings on there, and it lets buyers agents know like what the compensation is. It gives all of the specifics on the listing. It's something that most residential real estate agents use to help you find a home, or to list the home. So
It also feeds into the other systems. So your
Correct.
realtor.com and Zillow, it feeds
Correct.
into their systems.
So now that you can't put what the buyer's agent will get if there will be compensation given by the seller, and it has to go into the contract, what does that mean? What does it mean for sellers first?
So for the seller, what we do is we will explain to the seller what is first happening in the market. So I've been watching lots of news from all different parts of the country and how they're handling this, because the market is different depending on where you are. Where I am is pretty leveled out, so it might take a couple of months to sell a home. In the Northeast, it might still sell.
It's different.
in a week
It's
or
still a
so.
seller's market.
Exactly.
Mhm.
West Coast is going to be different. So have an idea. You need to know what's going on in the market. And if you know what's going on in the market, you need to explain that to, we explain that to the seller and let them know, because the market is so hot, we are in a situation where we can negotiate what that commission could be if another agent brings the buyer to us.
Now,
If the market,
I'm thinking that sellers will really not want to pay that commission. I mean, that could be a
bingo.
savings of, I mean, on a $400,000 home, that's like a $12,000 savings.
Exactly. Now, this has always been negotiable, which it's one of those things that wasn't really like spoken about out loud, I guess. It has always been negotiable.
Yeah.
Working with us as agents, working with a seller, that part is negotiable. When we work with buyers, that part is negotiable. And just in the past, the seller has given an offering and we were able to see what we were going to be paid prior to even showing the home. We don't do that anymore. We are not able to see on the computer what the seller is willing to give us. We must do it outside of the MLS system that we were just talking about.
Now, so for sellers, this is going to give them the option of either paying the buyer's agent or not.
Yes.
To me, it's a win-win for sellers, to be quite honest. However, let's talk about buyers, because previously, and tell me if I'm wrong, right? Previously, the seller would wrap that up into the listing price. So whatever it's selling for, they know that that buyer's agent commission has to come out of that price. So it's wrapped up in there, right?
That's right.
And that meant that the buyers could put that cost basically into their mortgage because it was part of the listing price. So now
Exactly.
they're going to have to come out of pocket and pay that. And I'm telling you, if you're a first-time home buyer or even an average like income home buyer, you might not have an extra $12,000, $15,000, $20,000.
Well, yes. And whether you have the money or not, this is something that how are you going to use that money? That $12,000 you might have wanted to use to put in new appliances or to buy down a interest rate.
Yep.
These are things that you no longer have the ability to put that into the mortgage unless you work that out with the agent and or seller and are able to work the contract that the amount that the seller is going to get at the end of the day works for them, and you're able to then also have the price that works with the contract, that your lender has the ability to kind of like work those numbers.
Now, I'm going to tell you,
Sense?
it does make sense. It makes
Okay.
total sense. And I'm going to let you know that even before this went into effect, I know agents here in New Jersey that were already getting sellers that were like, well, now I don't have to do that. I don't want to pay for it. And they were having to really sit down and talk to their sellers about why they may or may not want to do it. What does this
Agreed.
mean for agents? It seems like it's going to be very complicated for agents.
But well, it's different, and who likes change, right?
Right.
So we're struggling. We're struggling. I exchanged a text message. I have a new listing, and I had somebody that was going to show it, and literally my text message was giving them what we were willing to offer for them to bring a buyer, and I think I ended it with still figuring out how to communicate what your compensation will be. So
Right.
it was just kind of like, weird changes are happening. And that was just part of the conversation that person and I were having. We are figuring these things out. And what I want a buyer to understand is this is a conversation that you're going to have up front with an agent that's helping you. And you're then going to know what are your options on how this is going to work. The agent is going to know how they are able to put the amount that they're going to get for compensation into the contract. And then the buyer knows how much it's going to cost them. And what at the end of the day, that's going to, what that amount is going to be for the house that they're going to buy.
Now, you and just full disclosure, right? The Center for Real Estate Education and Susan South have come up with a home buyer's course for the buyer that does not want to be their own, that wants to be their own agent, that doesn't want to use a buyer's agent. So if they're finding that most sellers, are not including any kind of compensation for buyers, they could, and it's legal, right, Suzy? It's legal.
Oh, it is.
For
Yeah, you can buy a home without ever using an agent. You can sell
Correct.
it without ever using an agent.
Correct. So we've put together a course that takes buyers step by step by step through what needs to happen if you want to be your own buyer's agent, if you want to do it totally on your own. And I think that's pretty viable. We have to see where the market goes if sellers are willing still to pay. But if we find that they're not, I personally think that a lot of buyers, especially first-time home buyers, young buyers, they're going to opt just to do it themselves. I mean, not for nothing, when I was buying my house, and this is recent, this is the past 2 years, I found the house, I did almost everything myself. And I mean, I work in the industry, but my buyer's agent didn't really have to do as much as he would have with someone else because I was looking all the time because I was obsessed with it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I have had transactions where I've worked with a buyer where there have been a lot less of the things that I have needed to do. And there's still a value for an agent. So we're not,
Oh, of course.
yeah, we are definitely not in a position where we're saying that there's not a need to have real estate agents in the industry. We're just giving people options. That's been
Yeah.
something I think that when I work with my clients, it's always been important to me to explain a few different ways that we can skin this cat, a few different things that we can do to get the home that they want, a few different ways that we can sell the home that they're trying to sell. And
Right.
this is just another way for someone to purchase a home, really, and know what they're doing.
Well, also, I mean, we have a whole system set up where if they need help, they can also ask a real estate agent. And a lot of people, I'm sure, by the end are going to say, well, let me find a real estate agent that is offering the fees that I'm able to pay. But
Absolutely.
being a informed consumer, even if you just take it to understand what you're doing, is a
Mhm.
good idea.
Oh,
Um,
I completely agree. And the system that we have put together allows them to walk through the process so that you know what's happening. And then if at the end of the day, it is something that you do need to have an agent involvement, whether it's through what we're offering or you have an agent that you end up working with, understanding what's happening, I think is such a value to you as a home buyer that there's just a lot of value in what you're doing.
All right, Susan. So let's sort of wrap this up. I want to know from you, what are your predictions of what's going to happen in the next 6 months in the industry? Is it going to unravel? Is chaos going to ensue? Or are people just going to roll with the punches?
I don't think that we're going to roll with the punches
No
for
one ever
the
rolls with the punches in real estate, do
Yeah,
they?
yeah. I just don't see
Yeah.
that. I do think it's going to be chaotic. And part of that is going to be for a few weeks, if not even a few months. What I think is going to dictate how this goes is really the area that you are looking to buy in or sell in. If you're in an area where homes are selling in a month or a few weeks, you are probably going to see that the sellers are just not going to offer as much to a buyer's agent. And that's going to be a lot more negotiable. And the amount that a buyer's agent is going to receive in compensation is probably going to be a lot less. On the other hand, if you're in an area that is going strong and the houses are going quickly, as a buyer, you're probably going to need to have more, I guess, flexibility when it comes to that. So, us as agents, when we are working in these markets, we just need to understand that this is about negotiating this amount of compensation that we're going to get and going through what that looks like to the buyer and to the seller. They need to truly understand that, which a big part of this settlement is really going through what we are doing as agents and how we get paid. And this clarity, this part is probably the best part of the settlement.
So if I can just give my 2 cents as a final word. So back in the 1970s, I was reading about this. This is the way life was. So it's been done before. And a lot of times it was done by flat fees. And I think if you give a buyer a flat fee, they will be able to understand it. It won't be based on the amount of the house that they're going to get. It won't take away like, oh, now I have to get a cheaper house so I can pay my buyer's agent kind of thing. I think we're going to start seeing a lot of flat fees happening. But that's just my 2 cents. I don't think it's the end of buyer's agents at all.
And I agree with that. And this is something that it all has to be discussed beforehand.
Correct.
That's a big part of this. The agent and the buyer needs to have a conversation prior to going and ever seeing a home, whether that's virtually or in person. This part of the conversation has to happen prior to that relationship and going and seeing homes and even visually seeing them if you're doing a virtual tour.
And don't forget, if you want to be your own buyer's agent, you want to represent yourself, or you just want to learn more about the process, check out our new course. You can go to recareercenter.com/agent free, or you can Google Center for Real Estate Education Agent Free, and it's going to pop right on up. All right. Thanks, Suzy.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thanks for watching this episode. Now don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and we'll see you next time.